Hey everyone, welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to explore the absolutely fascinating psychology behind why highly intelligent people constantly, and I mean constantly, underestimate themselves. If you've ever felt like an imposter in a room, or maybe like your brain is just a bit too noisy, you're definitely going to want to pay close attention to what we've put together today. We are breaking down the literal science of hidden intelligence.
Okay, let's dive into this. It's time we totally shatter the illusion of the confident genius. You know, society kind of trains us to think that intelligence is loud. We always picture that one person who instantly raises their hand, the person who knows every single answer with absolute, unshakable certainty. But psychology? It paints a completely different picture. The psychological reality of true intelligence is often really quiet, and surprisingly, it is filled with doubt. It's way less about knowing everything right away, and much more about constantly questioning your own thoughts.
And this brings us to a really fundamental misunderstanding that smart people have about themselves. Highly intelligent folks almost always assume that their complex way of thinking is completely normal, because their intricate, super fast-paced way of processing the world is just their everyday baseline. Well, it feels standard to them. They look around and falsely assume that everybody else is processing the world in that exact same detailed, analytical way. And because they think everyone else is doing it too, they completely underestimate their own cognitive abilities.
So let's move into section 1. The internal skeptic. We're going to look at exactly how a truly smart mind interacts with its own thoughts.
Here is our first major sign of hidden intelligence. You constantly question your own thinking, and you internally argue with yourself. It's wonderfully ironic, isn't it? Arguing with yourself in your head is playfully seen as a bit crazy by most people, but it is actually a scientifically backed sign of high cognitive function. You don't just blindly trust your very first conclusion. Instead, you hit pause, you rethink. Actually, scratch that. It's more like you actively debate yourself before landing on an answer.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is the actual science behind that internal debate. It links directly to a formal term, metacognition. This is simply the ability to observe and evaluate your own thoughts. It's literally thinking about thinking. It means your brain isn't just taking in information, it's actively monitoring how it's processing that information. So this completely grounds that self-doubt you feel in highly credible cognitive science. Think of it this way. Less intelligent thinking naturally seeks certainty. It just wants a quick, easy, definitive answer so the brain can clock out and stop working. But more intelligent thinking? It deliberately questions certainty. Taking the time to rethink, to pause, and to genuinely challenge a conclusion requires far more brainpower and energy. If you're constantly questioning what you're supposedly certain of, your brain is doing some serious heavy lifting.
That brings us directly to sign 2. Even when you learn a ton, you constantly feel like you don't know enough. You could literally read 10 books on a subject and still feel like a total amateur. Psychology shows us that as your understanding grows, your awareness of the massive amount of information you don't know expands right alongside it. You start to see the vast boundaries of a topic, which makes you realize just how small your piece of the puzzle actually is. The psychological state for this is called intellectual humility. It's an active, constant awareness of the limits of your own knowledge. And I want to assure you right now, feeling inadequate when you learn something new isn't a flaw. No way. It is a profound marker of intellectual maturity. It just means your brain is advanced enough to comprehend the sheer massive scale of what is out there to be learned.
There's a brilliant saying that perfectly captures this reality. You don't feel smart, you feel unfinished. That is the exact reality of a highly intelligent mind. If you ever deal with imposter syndrome, please let this validate you. Your endless pursuit of knowledge isn't because you're lacking, it's because your brain naturally recognizes that learning is an infinite, totally unfinished process. Let's move to and see how this builds in section 2, the web builder. This is all about how your mind treats external ideas and information.
So sign 3 is fascinating. Your mind jumps between topics, patterns, or concepts and finds connections that others just don't immediately see. You see, you don't just store isolated facts in little separate filing cabinets in your brain. Instead, your mind is constantly linking seemingly unrelated concepts. You could be talking about architecture and suddenly draw a completely valid, mind-blowing parallel to computer programming.
And this brilliantly illustrates the concept of associative thinking. This web-building habit is the literal definition of advanced processing in psychology. It's a key component of creativity and intelligence where information is actively linked across your brain. You don't just passively hold data, you weave it all together into a massive, interconnected web of understanding.
Because your brain operates in this complex web, we naturally see sign 4. You prefer depth over surface-level thinking, and you get incredibly bored by obvious answers. Intelligent minds are starved for complexity and underlying structure. Honestly, this is exactly why superficial conversations or standard small talk can feel utterly, physically exhausting to you. Your brain is practically begging for a deeper gear to shift into.
It all comes down to the big difference between what and why. Passively accepting the what is just taking information at face value, but highly intelligent minds, they are driven by the why. They have this burning need to dig deeper into the mechanics of the world. They want to explore information, dismantle it, and really understand the hidden structure operating right beneath the surface. Which brings us to Section 3, Seeing the Unseen. Let's look at how your mind interacts with its physical and social surroundings.
Here is sign 5. You notice subtle details others simply miss. Small inconsistencies in a story, tiny shifts in someone's tone of voice, slight changes in behavior patterns, or even just the weird timing of an event. They stand right out to you like a flashing neon light. Picking up on these tiny changes isn't you being paranoid or overthinking. It is actually elite observation at work.
Psychology links this directly to heightened awareness and pattern detection. It is the specific ability to pick up what is hidden rather than just lazily observing the obvious. Your brain is constantly scanning your environment, quietly processing thousands of micro data points in the background. And honestly, this constant high-level background scanning is exactly why your brain sometimes feels so incredibly tired at the end of the day.
So, the crucial point is coming up right here in Section 4, Redefining True Intelligence. Let's tie all of this together.
If you take only one single thing away from this explainer, please let it be this. Intelligence doesn't always feel impressive to the person holding it. In fact, it most often feels like doubt. That heavy, doubtful, analytical weight you feel in your mind, it isn't a weakness, and it isn't a sign that you are falling behind. It is the absolute very proof of a highly active, highly capable processor working exactly as it was designed to. Let's rapidly summarize these 5 signs as a quick mental checklist. If you're doubting your own thoughts through metacognition, if you feel like you don't know enough because of your intellectual humility, if your associative thinking is constantly connecting unrelated ideas, if you're actively seeking deep complexity, and if your heightened awareness is noticing those subtle, hidden details, well, these traits collectively form the unmistakable profile of hidden brilliance. They are the clear signs of a mind processing far more than it shows. I'm going to leave you with this final, thought-provoking question straight from our psychological source material. The next time you find yourself doubting your own mind, stop and ask yourself, are you actually less intelligent, or are you just more aware of the sheer complexity around you? Because sometimes the people who feel the least certain are the ones doing the absolute most thinking. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep questioning everything.